Hello and welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Tuesday, October 6th. This is where we bring you the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you for choosing to be here to get filled in on what's impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. We'll start off this morning talking about President Donald Trump returning to the White House. He tweeted this morning just after 10:30 a.m. that he is feeling great, but it is not that tweet that has people upset. President Donald Trump left Walter Reed Medical Center yesterday, arriving back at the White House right around 6:30 p.m. Before that, he tweeted in the afternoon that he would be leaving the medical center and that he was feeling really good. He also said, "We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." But in the middle of that tweet, President Donald Trump also added, "Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life." And it is that part of the tweet that people are taking issue with. Now, this is an important time to remind everyone that President Donald Trump is not a doctor and is not qualified to give medical advice such as "don't be afraid of COVID, don't let it dominate your life." Now, that message enraged 64-year-old Scott Sedlacek. Scott was one of the first people to be treated for COVID-19 at Seattle's Swedish Medical Center. He is 64 years old. He was treated in March and says that he is still traumatized by his experience with COVID. Now, he was enraged specifically by President Donald Trump's advice in the tweet and also a video that he posted on Monday not to fear COVID-19, as well as the fact that the president insisted on riding in a motorcade outside Walter Reed Medical Center and returning to the White House while still infectious. Now, also keep in mind, this person, Scott, not a doctor, but medical professionals also expressing concern for the fact that not only did President Donald Trump potentially endanger his own health, but also potentially endangering other people. For example, the people who had to be in that motorcade with him because he is presumably still contagious at this time. Now, another point that's being made is that President Donald Trump is getting the best care that we have available in the country, not necessarily the care that the average person who becomes infected with COVID-19 is able to get. Now, Scott, this first patient out of Seattle, said that he's glad that the president appears to be doing well and that he has doctors who can give him experimental drugs that aren't available to the masses. As a reminder, President Donald Trump was given an experimental antibody cocktail that had to be gotten special permission from the FDA in order to give that to the president. He's also been given remdesivir, another experimental treatment that's still in the middle of being tested out, and the steroid dexamethasone. Scott said, "For the rest of us who are trying to protect ourselves, that behavior is an embarrassment." Now, just as a reminder, COVID-19 has infected about 7.5 million Americans to date, and more than 210,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. Millions of people are unemployed, including Scott, who was treated back in March in Seattle. And the U.S. has less than 5% of the global population, but more than 20% of the reported COVID-19 deaths. Now, when President Donald Trump arrived back at the White House yesterday evening, right around 6:30, where he will continue to be treated for COVID-19, he immediately removed his mask and stood there for a photo opportunity before joining people who were inside. You could actually see people inside the doors after the president entered. Now, it's not immediately clear how close he was to those people, but it was definitely clear that there were people inside in the surroundings of the president while he entered the White House when he got back there, again, when doctors are saying that he is presumably still contagious. Now, the president's own doctors, including Dr. Sean Connolly, who has been criticized for the way he's been handling the press briefings, have said that the president is not out of the woods yet, and we do know that he does still have doses of remdesivir to take. Medical professionals have said that the critical points in the stage of the COVID-19 progression are around those 7 to 10 day stage, and we are not exactly clear on what day the president is during his course of the COVID-19 disease. Now, President Donald Trump also tweeted this morning that he's looking forward to the debate on the evening of Thursday, October 15th, a little over a week away in Miami. He says it will be great. Now, a reminder that the vice presidential debate, that will be tomorrow, the first and only vice presidential debate. That will be between Vice President Mike Pence and Democratic candidate for vice president, current Senator Kamala Harris. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. at 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, Vice President Mike Pence has been in the vicinity of President Donald Trump. So, as a precaution, there will be a plexiglass barrier between Vice President Pence and Senator Kamala Harris at that debate. Now, a person who is familiar with the debate planning told NBC News that it was Harris's campaign that asked for the barrier, and this will be in place at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, where the debate is taking place. The Commission on Presidential Debates did approve that request. Now, here's another reminder. Vice President Mike Pence has been tested and has said to have tested COVID-19 negative. But doctors are now reminding us that a negative test does not remove the need to quarantine. So some people are concerned about the fact that the debate is still moving forward. Some medical professionals, because Vice President Mike Pence has been in the vicinity of President Donald Trump, and we do know now that the virus could still be in an incubation period. So a negative COVID-19 test, again, does not remove the requirement for a 14-day quarantine based on the guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control. Now, in addition to President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, lots of people in the president's orbit have now tested positive for COVID-19. That includes the president's campaign manager, Bill Stapien, top Trump advisor Hope Hicks, also Kellyanne Conway, and now White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. All have tested positive for COVID-19. That's not including all of the people who were at that Supreme Court nominee announcement event, which happened a few Saturdays ago in September, where there were senators as well. New York Governor Chris Christie, who has also been hospitalized, testing positive for COVID-19. Now, here back in Ohio at Kent State University, there are now 57 students who are being told to quarantine after possible COVID-19 exposure. They are being asked to quarantine until Friday, October 16th, so that's 10 days from now. It'll be 42 residents on the 9th floor of Kuntz Hall and 15 residents on the 3rd floor of Centennial Court E. They'll all be asked to stay in a separate section of their respective buildings. Kent State University officials said in a statement that they have prepared for positive cases throughout the semester. They've made rooms available on campus to support people in residence halls who must isolate with a positive case or are quarantining because they've been in close contact with a positive case of COVID-19. Arrangements are being made. There'll be meals provided to these students, and also arrangements are being made for them to take their courses virtually rather than face-to-face. Now, Kent State is asking anyone who believes that they have been in close contact with someone who has been positive for COVID-19 or who is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 to call the Kent State University response team. That number is 330-675-2525. Again, that number is 330-675-2525. Since July 7th, there have been a total of 165 cases of COVID-19 reported at Kent State University's main campus. Switching gears, talking about the other candidate for the presidency coming up in the November 3rd election, which, by the way, is just 4 weeks away officially as of today. Democratic candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden discussed the issue of the potential overturning of Roe versus Wade during a town hall last night. This was an NBC town hall in Miami, Florida, and someone asked former Vice President Biden what his plan would be if the Senate does confirm the president's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and if she does hand down a ruling that would overturn Roe versus Wade. Well, former Vice President Joe Biden said, first, we don't know exactly what she would do, but it is the expectation, according to Biden and many people who analyze the court, that Judge Amy Coney Barrett could likely hand down a ruling, be a part of a decision that would overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, Roe versus Wade was the landmark case from 1973 that recognized the constitutionally guaranteed right to an abortion in the United States. So former Vice President Joe Biden went on to say if that were to happen, the only option would be to pass legislation that would make Roe versus Wade the law of the land, and he said that's what he would do. President Donald Trump reacted to that on Twitter today and said that Joe Biden took a more liberal position on Roe versus Wade than Elizabeth Warren at her highest. Now, just to give you a recap of where it stands in terms of the possibility of Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation to the Supreme Court, the Republican-led Senate right now is refusing to stop moving forward with that confirmation process. Hearings are expected to begin October 12th. However, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is a Republican, has requested that the floor proceedings of the Senate be delayed until October 19th. There's a lot of things at play here right now with the current COVID-19 positive cases. For example, Senator Tom Tillis and Senator Mike Lee, they are both on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and their votes are crucial in order to move Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination out of committee to a full vote on the Senate floor. Well, those are two people who tested positive for COVID-19, and they were at the announcement of her nomination 2 Saturdays ago. So that definitely presents a wrinkle for Republican senators who were hoping to have this confirmation in place before the election on November 3rd. In just 4 weeks. Now, Democrats, led by the presidential candidate Joe Biden, say that the winner of the upcoming presidential election should choose the nominee. Even if this vote happens after the election, that does not necessarily mean the results of the election will have any impact on what could happen with that nomination. But it is looking more and more likely, based on the fact that those two senators, those two crucial senators, now have COVID-19 and will be forced to quarantine, especially because as things currently stand right now, the Senate does not have any provisions in place for remote voting. You do actually have to be in person in the Senate in order to cast a vote. Now, they are saying there is some talk about those confirmation hearings happening virtually, but that's very different than a vote, which again, there are no provisions in place right now for a virtual vote in the U.S. Senate. That's something that Mitch McConnell talked about in March, and he said that they would deal with the distancing guidelines without having to fundamentally change any of the rules of the Senate. Now, we've seen Mitch McConnell change his mind on things before, so it wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility that he would change his mind on something about this. However, when it comes to a Supreme Court nominee, there are a lot of people who are saying that would be a very drastic turn. So we will be watching that very closely, along with many other things in the coming weeks leading up to the election. Now, today, Tuesday, October 6th, today is the first day for early in-person voting here in Ohio, and there were already lines forming outside of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections today for people to get in and get those votes cast. Now, lots of people have requested absentee ballots by mail. There are 2 million absentee ballots being mailed out to voters today here in Ohio. That's more than twice the number that were mailed out in 2016. So if that's your plan, there are some very important steps that you need to know. So we're just going to walk you through the steps very quickly, what you need to know to make sure your absentee ballot counts if you mail it in or drop it off in person. You need to first inspect it and make sure that there aren't any marks or any tears. If your ballot is damaged in any way, you need to contact your Board of Elections and get a new ballot because a damaged ballot might not be valid. Next, you need to make sure you fill out your ballot in black or blue ink. Do not use a pencil. Next, you need to make sure you fill out the identification envelope. So this is an envelope that asks for your name, your birthday, your driver's license, or the last 4 digits of your social security number. And you also have to sign and date that envelope. Now, this is not the time to use your most perfect signature. This is the time to use the signature that you use every single day, because if your signature doesn't match the signature on your voter registration form, your ballot can be thrown out. So that's very important. Keep that in mind. However you signed that voter registration form, that's how you need to sign this identification envelope. Then you put your ballot into the identification envelope. So you've got a ballot, you've got an identification envelope. You put the ballot into the identification envelope, then you put that envelope into the return envelope that does not have any of your identifying information on it. If you don't do this, your ballot is considered a naked ballot and it will be thrown out. 21,000 absentee ballots were thrown out in the Ohio primary because they were naked ballots. So that's very important. Also, do not remove the stub on your ballot. If you remove the stub on your ballot, it will not count. Finally, return your ballot by mail or drop it off in person at your county board of elections. You can mail it and have it postmarked by November 2nd, the day before the election, or you can drop it off on the day of election on November 3rd up until 7:30 p.m. Now, if you have requested a mail-in ballot, an absentee ballot, and you decide that you would rather vote in person, you can do that early, and you can also do that on election day. If you vote early, you can take that ballot with you, or you actually don't even have to take it with you, but it is convenient if you take it with you, and then your county board of elections will cancel your mail-in ballot right there, and you'll be able to vote on a regular ballot. If you wait until election day and you decide that you didn't want to mail in a ballot, you didn't want to do early in-person voting, you want to vote in person on election day, you will cast what is called a provisional ballot. Here is the difference between a regular ballot and a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is used when someone's voter registration can't be verified that day. So if you've already requested that mail-in ballot, the concern there is maybe that was already mailed in. So your ballot will still count, but the Board of Elections will need time to make sure that your registration is valid, you didn't vote some other way, so it'll be counted in the following days after the election. And there is one more scenario when you can cast a provisional ballot. If you missed the voter registration deadline, which was yesterday, and didn't update your address, but you're registered to vote, but maybe you recently moved and didn't update your address, you can cast a provisional ballot as well. So if you're already registered, but you maybe didn't make sure your address was updated, you can still vote in the election. We've got that all spelled out on WKYC.com and the WKYC app, so make sure you check that out if you have any questions. Very thorough breakdown, or just rewind this and listen to it again. We've got it all breaking down for you. Now, with everything that's going on, it's important that we always take stock of our mental health, especially this week, because this week is National Mental Illness Week. And what we have seen from experts, what experts are telling us, is that the number of people experiencing anxiety and depression has really increased during the pandemic. Dr. Shirley Ratner, who is a clinical psychologist at Metro Health, says that what we're all experiencing right now is something that no one is fully equipped to handle. I think we can all attest to that. I think we've all had our moments throughout this entire situation, dating back to March and all of the wildness that's happening in the world right now, when we've thought to ourselves, this is not normal, and this is really difficult. Well, Dr. Ratner says that, unfortunately, during difficult times, something that people find comfort in is social gatherings, and right now we're in a time where we're being asked to limit those social gatherings. So we have some tips from experts for you on what you can do to try and handle anxiety and depression right now. And the first of those is to watch for signs in yourself and for others. Notice if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling sad, lethargic, unmotivated, those kinds of things. And secondly, identify those things and reach out to people. Something that's being recommended is to set up a socially distant gathering if you can do that outside before it gets too cold, or a weekly Zoom setup with friends, or reaching out to a professional. Always a great idea to reach out to a professional and open up about your emotions and feelings with people that you trust. And also, experts recommend being open to people coming to you. And finally, try not to compare yourself to other people. It is said time and time again that we really don't know what other people are going through. We really don't know what the reality of people's situations are. And honestly, the things that we see on social media, everybody, not real. It's the highlight reel. Some people, yes, they do share very personal thoughts. They are open about a lot of things, but not everybody, and even the people that are not doing it every time. We are seeing curated moments from people on social media, so keep that in mind, especially when social media is the main form of interaction that a lot of us are having right now. And also, keep in mind that it is more common than you think, people dealing with feelings of anxiety and depression and other mental illness issues. 1 in 5 adults, according to the experts, will actually experience some type of mental illness in their lifetime. So if you're feeling that way, you are not alone. If you are having difficulty handling the things that are happening in the world right now, this is not a normal time. I don't like to use the word normal, but this is definitely not a normal time. I think it absolutely applies here. Now, if you or someone you know is having troubling thoughts, it is recommended you can call 911, or if needed, the suicide hotline. The National Suicide Hotline is 1-888-273-8255. Again, that's 1-888-273-8255. Now, we do have an update to tell you before we go from the Ohio Department of Health. The Cleveland Browns will be allowed to have up to 12,000 fans in attendance at this Sunday's game against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, that's up from what they were allowed for the first 2 home games. The Browns had been allowed 6,000 fans in the stands for the first 2 home games. They put a proposal together. They sent that to the Ohio Department of Health. They said they hadn't had any COVID-19 cases traced back to the games. They have protocols in place. So Ohio's Department of Health interim director has increased the number of fans that are allowed to be at next Sunday's game to 12,000. Now, spectators will still have to enter through designated gates. They will be in pods of no more than 2 to 4 fans sitting together, no more than 6 fans total sitting together. And all of those pods will be at least 6 feet apart in order to keep in line with those distancing requirements. And all of the other protocols that had been in place will still be in place, masks required, that sort of thing. So we'll see double amount of people in First Energy Stadium when the Browns take on the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday with a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. Now, both of those records are 3-1, and I asked Jay Crawford yesterday how those Colts stack up to the teams we've seen so far, and he says they're better. They're better than the teams we've played so far. So Sunday should be a good matchup, and the Browns will have twice as many people in the stadium there to increase that energy, and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens on Sunday when they take on the Colts with twice as many people in First Energy Stadium. One more thing to ask you before we go. We know the fall leaves are changing outside, and the colors are absolutely beautiful. We want to share the best part of this season, those beautiful colors, with all of you. So send us your photos of the fall colors changing. You can text them to us at 216-344-3300. Again, that's 216-344-3300, or you can send them to us in the WKYC app. Just open up that app, scroll down till you see that bright orange bar asking for you to send us your photos of the fall colors changing, and then you can send that to us. Please, though, make sure you include your name, your phone number, or your email, and where you're from, so that we can contact you and let you know if we're going to use your photos online or on one of our TV shows, like maybe on What's New, maybe in the Trending Stories segment, maybe in Clicking in Cleveland. We'll see what happens. That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Tuesday, October 6th. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast provider, which you can find 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney there, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We'd love for you to do it. It does help us get in front of more people and connect with more people here in Northeast Ohio. I'll see you back here in just a little bit, shortly after 3 p.m., as soon as we get those new numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health and the rest of the stories that are topping WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Stay safe, be well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you back here in a little bit. I'm Stephanie Haney.